Hello, hello. This is Tina. You've found Ghost Tracks Podcast. I am your host. Today, we're going to be reading some listener stories, but because we're new, I have gotten some stories from Reddit instead. We did have one listener write in. Thank you so much to her. I'm so excited to be here and to get this party started. All right. We've got some wholesome ones, got a little bit of spooky, we got a little bit of everything. So let's jump in. Our first listener story was posted by Hidden in the Maze on Reddit, and it's a wholesome haunting? ? And it says, I am an 18-year-old. When I was 6, my dad passed away. I am so sorry for that. Especially given that it's just past the holidays, I'm sure that has not gotten any easier. He was an amazing dad, and when my siblings and I were babies, he was very protective. He was also in the military, and before he went on his last deployment, we made a Build-A-Bear, customizable stuffed animal. For those who've never been to Build-A-Bear. I have never been to Build-A-Bear. Shocking, I know. When he squeezed the hand, it would play a recording of him saying, "You are my sunshine," which he always sang to us at nighttime, or calm one of us down when we were upset or got hurt. When my dad returned from his deployment, the song wouldn't play. You could squeeze all you want, and it wouldn't play. We thought it was just broken because little kids break things. Well, 2 weeks after my dad died, I fell down the stairs. From upstairs, you could hear my dad's recording play. It hadn't worked in 2 years after he returned, and it suddenly works now. My mom, my sister, our brothers, all stunned. We tried to make it play again, and nothing. We thought it was just a fluke, some crazy coincidence. When my sister's boyfriend broke up with her the next week, she came home crying. What a jerk. The moment she stepped through the front door, the bear went off. It kept happening. When one of my brothers stubbed his toe, when my sister smacked herself in the head with the cabinet door, bright one she is. I did not say that. The writer did. And I'm in that same category, being the bright one that smacks her head on cabinets and cabinet doors. So I feel you there, sister. For years, every time one of us was upset, you would hear the bear. It stopped a couple of years ago. We all figured that Dad decided that we were older now and didn't need his protection anymore. My sister didn't go to college because of her disability. She's taking some time off to heal and figure out her own path. I'm the second oldest. I just got my first college application acceptance letter. Congratulations, that's so exciting. I came in, tore the packaging open, and jumped for joy. We were all crowded around the kitchen when we heard it. The freaking bear hadn't gone off in years. Well, that is amazing. Your dad was just popping in to say hi and tell you how excited he is. And congratulations, and that he's just so proud of you. That is an absolutely wholesome haunting, and I am so happy that Dad still popped in to visit and give you a ghostly pat on the back. Our next story is from Toots Magoo 2022. I love your name, by the way. And it reads, we went to an all-girls Catholic school from the 60s attached to a convent. Everything was preserved very well. It felt like a beautiful and spooky mini Hogwarts, a dream. Our auditorium was on the very top floor, about 4 floors up. It was gorgeously creepy with things in Latin painted in a gold color, deco above the stage, big blackout maroon velvet curtains on the windows. Can I move in here? Can this be my room? Teenage girls can lose things a lot and be dramatic, but I trust the encounters of my very logical, responsible, school-oriented friends. Between 2006 and 2010, most of the girls had cell phones for pretty much the first time. I remember those days when cell phones were all the rage and they were built like bricks, not like the tiny little things we have now. Well, not tiny, but skinny little things that we have now, I should say. My friends would come in the next day and talk about losing their phones and scripts for the play, then finding them in odd places. There was a former boarding school student who jumped from the catwalk right outside the auditorium and died in the late 1800s. That's terrible. I think she just wanted to play with the girls' phones and have some fun. There was also a gray nun bopping around that had a very different vibe, a la Nun, the spooky movie. Grey nuns were a separate order of nuns that the current inhabiting and teaching Sisters of Charity nuns at the school. Grey nuns hadn't been around the campus for decades. The Grey nun would mostly hang out on the 3rd floor library and the main floor's hallway that leads to the convent. Beyond normal old school building things, big heavy doors would move, objects fall, lights flicker, and whether or not something visually happened, the vibe. I remember the feeling of more viscous air flowing into my English classroom from the door and the teacher's eyes widening. The girls all went quiet. Our whole energy just went from excited teenage girls to all sitting forward quietly and looking at each other. Then the teacher saying, "Well, I feel like that would be my reaction. Well," and then just continued with the lesson. Yeah, that would definitely be my reaction. I would just move on. Maybe we were too enthusiastic about the Canterbury Tales, and Sis had to set us straight. I'll also never forget this one experience of what felt like a full minute or two in the big study hall on the main floor. All 3 sets of big double doors violently slammed shut at the same time, and the giant windows just shook for a while. The nun running from the study hall, Sister Mary Agnes, Smags, with a silly face, was so confused. There was no wind. I recall her slowly approaching the double doors to open them again and inspecting what the fuck could have happened. The old boarding school portion of the school was also converted into an art, photography, and dance section of the school. So amazing. I'm not religious, but this sounds like a dream. Definitely mini Hogwarts vibes, for sure. The plumbing to the old bathrooms, showers had been disconnected decades ago. Girls would hear showers and sinks running, toilets flushing, but nothing was connected. The different locker areas for the 4 grades on the basement floor were the weirdest and creepiest, though. All the other experiences made some sense. I don't even know what was up with the sophomore locker room in this back cove of the basement. Locker room in the basement, that sounds terrifying. I never nailed it down. Knew not to be there too long. Sometimes a nun would pop out of the storage area boiler room and freak us out, then request manual labor. Haha. Well, at least they had a sense of humor. I don't know what business they had down there. They must have Febrezed the basement with holy water to protect us from whatever was going on. Besides the basement, everyone's sentiment on the little spooks was that it was all fun and we were all buds. Easy to do with confidence if you're in the covenant of ladies honing in baby G at all hours of the day. I think that's how I am now going to refer to Jesus, as baby G. That's amazing. Well, it sounds like, I wasn't there, obviously, but it sounds like most of the hauntings were pretty benign. Maybe just, old ghosts roaming the halls that they used to roam. Just making sure everybody was being respectful. No tomfoolery was happening. I'm glad that wasn't, the vibe of the Nun the movie, because I'd be shatting in my pantaloons if that were the case. All right. Well, our third story, it was posted by Spicy Ramen 47. Another amazing name. My youngest boyo loves ramen. This kid could live on ramen all day, every day if I would let him. So it says, "Hi, I'd like to start this post out by saying that I'm generally pretty skeptical about cryptids and the like, but I've recently had some experiences that I can't seem to explain. I've been an avid outdoorsman my entire life, and I've spent countless hours in and around the woods. And this just has me stumped. This all took place in the mountains of western Montana over a 2-week time span. Montana is stunning, by the way. I was out having a campfire in a relatively secluded location with one of my friends when we noticed a random light from off in the woods. Now, I'm not about some random lights in the woods. I love being outdoors, but again, that would be a shatting in my pantaloons moment, if I do say so myself. I didn't think too much of it at the time, but we noticed it moving around a bit, so we just chalked it up to a late-night hiker with a headlamp. But considering our location and the time of night, didn't feel comfortable staying around, so we left. A couple of days later, I returned to the same spot alone. You are a brave soul. You just had these creepy-ass lights floating around, and then you're just like, I'll go back and check it out by myself. No. But they didn't see any lights at first, but after about an hour, and you stayed out for more than an hour. Homie, I would have been packing up in my car, maybe driving around a little bit, but I'd have been outie. In roughly the same direction, but this time they were 3, and they've multiplied. And they're saying, the weird thing was, the whole thing is a weird thing. Oh my God, get out of there. The weird thing was they all moved in sync, bobbing up and down and getting closer and further away, all in unison. I decided to walk towards them to cheese and rice. I decided to walk towards them to see if it might just be a sign reflecting light that I hadn't noticed. But as I approached, they seemed to be getting further away, maintained roughly 300 yards of distance between me and them, so I turned around and left the area. A few days after that, I returned to the same place, this time around 2:30 in the morning. Do you sleep? I mean, I'm in bed, like drooling on my pillow at 2:30 in the morning, and you're out here stomping around the woods in Montana chasing phantom lights. I couldn't shake this feeling of paranoia. Well, that was because it's 2:30 in the morning and dark and there's creepy lights. I'd be paranoid too. I couldn't shake this feeling of paranoia that had overcome me, seemingly from the minute I showed up. At about 3:45, I heard a single noise that sounded like a whistle. Just a single note, nothing crazy, but it sounded far off and deep in the woods, so I dismissed it as just a bird or some other small critter. But about 20 minutes later, I heard more whistling. This time, a genuine tune that lasted about 15 seconds and sounded no more than 50 yards away. I said, fuck that, and bolted to my car and left. See, that would have been me in the beginning. I wouldn't have gone back 3 separate times. I haven't been back since. Maybe I'm just being paranoid, as there has been a camper Guys, there had been a camper murdered in the area not too long beforehand, but this has been my creepiest experience in the woods since as long as I can remember. What do you all think? Is there anything in the area that could explain these encounters? Anything helps. Well, I mean, I'm probably not going to be of any help here, but you had a murdered camper with some crazy lights happening afterwards. I mean, overall, it doesn't sound malicious. I will say that. But I'm not about to go out in the woods, again, 3 separate times in the middle of the night after a murder has occurred in the area and go chasing some crazy lights. Hopefully the person that was murdered has moved on. Maybe their soul's at rest. I would hope so. And they're in the beautiful beyond. But maybe, unfortunately, given the end that this camper had found for itself, I don't know if this was a man or a woman who passed away. Maybe the lights are just trying to, I don't know, guide it to the other side. Or maybe it's the camper themselves saying, hey, I'm still here. But it doesn't sound malicious, but I would not be in those woods anymore. And the whistling sound definitely wouldn't have me out there walking around after that. Whistling in the woods in the middle of the night. I know this is not in the woods of Appalachia. I know that's a big no-no if you're out in the Appalachian Mountains to not be going around and definitely not looking after some whistling. But yeah, no, friend, stay out of those woods. You said you haven't been back. I would be staying out of there. And anyone else in the vicinity, let's see, we've got some western Montana mountains. And listen, I know that Montana is comprised of a great deal of mountains, so that's not super specific, but just be careful out there, friends. And the bread and butter, the thing that I was waiting for, I have put out on some of our socials. We have some socials. I've got a Facebook group, private, and then we have a Facebook page as well. We're also on Instagram, and I've been asking, obviously this is going to be our second episode that comes out, but our first listener story episode, and I've been begging people, like, could be, I'm almost down on my knees asking people for ghost stories at this time, and even the people I know, I mean, guys, where are you at? Hit a girl up. I've been asking for some ghost stories. I haven't really gotten a whole lot. Obviously, we've just started. I'm hoping we get even more. I mean, I know we're all some haunted ass people, so I know there are stories out there, but this beautiful, amazing person listened to my call. They answered the call and they gave me a listener story. They emailed it in, and I'll give you all the email at the end. But here is our first listener email. Thank you so much for sending this in again. It says, "Hi there. I'm from a small town in Ontario, Canada. I saw your post in the Facebook group. I've always been a little skeptical when it comes to the paranormal. But one experience still lingers in my mind, making me question what's truly out there. It happened in an old century home, of course, well, yeah, that belonged to my friend's family. The house had this eerie charm, high ceilings, creaky floorboards, and a staircase that led up to a dusty attic. The attic was like a time capsule. I have lived in an old home. It was actually on a historic registry in Georgetown, Delaware, of all places. This home was absolutely stunning, and the attic was much the same. It was like a little time capsule, and it was so fun to go up there and explore and look through old mail and stamps and photos. I think there were some clothes up there. Just overall, chef's kiss. I loved it. Let's see. They were left untouched since the previous owners. It was filled with an old piano with keys yellowed by time, antique clothes draped over cloths. Good Lord. Antique cloths draped over chairs and picture frames. The vibe was strange, sure, but we weren't scared. It was more intriguing than anything else. My friend and I explored for a while, laughing at the bizarre old items we found until we decided to head back downstairs. That's when it happened. Out of nowhere, a piercing sound erupted. A group of children's screams. And while the sound didn't exactly feel like fear or pain, it wasn't joyful either. It was somewhere in between, like the wild, chaotic cries of children playing in a fever dream. I don't know that I've ever heard chaotic cries of children playing in a fever dream, but that sounds terrifying. I would not have signed up for this experience, I don't think, guys. The noise was deafening, and it's certainly not if it's a deafening noise. Look, I've lived my child life. I'm a mom. I've got kiddos. We did foster care for years. I've been through some kids. Deafening screams of children are not on my favorites list. But it says, the noise was deafening, filling the attic so completely it felt like it was vibrating in my chest. My ears were ringing, and my friend's face turned pale as we both froze, locking eyes. Neither of us said a word. We just bolted down the stairs. See, that is appropriate response. The person that was in the woods should have had that response. Our feet barely touching the steps as the echoes of the screams faded behind us. We reached the window in the living room and yanked it open, expecting to see a group of kids outside, maybe playing in the driveway or on the street. But the driveway was empty. The street was still. The only sound now was the faint rustling of leaves in the breeze. Then our sister came out of the bedroom. I think I just became Mike Tyson. My goodness. Bedroom, looking annoyed. What are you guys doing? She asked, brushing her hair out of her face. You didn't hear that? My friend stammered. Her voice was shaking. Hear what? My stomach dropped. I couldn't believe it. The sound had been so loud, so overwhelming. There was no way someone in the house wouldn't have heard it. My friend and I stared at each other, the color draining from our faces as the realization hit us. Whatever we had heard, it wasn't something anyone else could hear, and it wasn't something that should have been there at all. To this day, I can still hear that echo and those screams in my mind. I don't know what they were, and I'm not sure I want to find out. Along with you on that, that's the screaming of children, especially of ghostly children. I don't know that would be fun screams for sure. I don't know where there was a whole bunch of children up in that attic screaming like that. That's terrifying. I hope that maybe one of these little ghost children was simply playing a prank on the other ghost children in life. Maybe it was just a whole bunch of friends and it scared the absolute bejesus out of them. And that is the stain that was left on that attic. Hopefully it was nothing more scary than that or devious. I don't know. It sounds like the attic was still cool otherwise. And P.S., let me just say, the way that you write is absolutely beautiful. Like, can you write all of my stuff, please? Because you're amazing. Anyway, I am so thankful to her for sending that in. I loved these stories. I'm so excited to be doing this. This podcast has been in the back of my mind for the last several years, and I'm kind of a chicken shit. So, I just waited and put it off and put it on the back burner and lived life. And here I am. So I'm really excited to be here. I am doing this by myself right now. So I'm so sorry that you guys just get one voice, not two or multiple. At least I hope not. I mean, there could be some ghosties hanging out in the background that might pop in to say, hey, I am known to attract some ghosty people. But yeah, this is Ghost Tracks podcast. This has been a dream. So I'm hopeful that this will take off and I can entertain you guys for eons to come. I don't know, even from the great beyond maybe. But again, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, Ghost Tracks Podcast. We have an email for listener submission stories. You can hit us up on that. It is ghosttracks podcast@gmail.com. I do not have a website up yet, but follow us on socials. This is going to be a weekly podcast for right now, and at the end of each one, I'll tell you a little bit more. Again, this should be our second episode, first listener stories episode, though, and I think what we're going to do is we're just going to alternate. So we're going to have researched episodes and then some listener story episodes. So make sure you're sending those in. Give us a like. All the fun stuff, all the things that everybody tells you to do. And we will talk to you later. And by we, I mean me and my ghosts. And I'm excited to be here. So thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay creepy.